and welcome to Nana's Crafty Home. My name is Tanya. Today's tutorial is going to show you how to crochet the Breezy Day Ombre Cowl. This is a free pattern that you can find on my website. I will have a link below in the description if you'd like to head on over to those free written pattern instructions. This is a one cake project using approximately 344 yards, and I used the Lion Brand Mandala Ombre yarn. Really soft, beautiful ombre color changes that works perfectly with this pattern and with the stitch that I'm using. And I am just using a very simple stitch. It's called the linked half double crochet, and basically it is a simple variation of the half double crochet, which links two stitches together, eliminating the gaps between the stitches. Very simple, beginner friendly cowl. I'm also going to be using a size H or a 5.0 millimeter crochet hook, which is the recommended hook size for the yarn that I'm using. I have a 1.5 inch large decorative button for the cowl, which is optional. It does look really nice, but it is simply decorative. You will also need a stitch marker if desired. That is optional. It can help you to place your button when you're getting ready to sew that onto your cowl. To get started, I'm going to get my yarn on my hook and chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to work 2 linked half double crochets in the third chain from the hook. For that first linked half double crochet, I'm going to be picking up a loop from the second chain from my hook. So to start that first linked half double crochet, I'm going to insert my hook into the second chain from the hook, yarn over and pull up a loop. Then to complete the stitch, I will be inserting my hook in the third chain from the hook, yarning over, pulling up a loop. With 3 loops on my hook, I'll yarn over and pull through all 3. Now I want to work a second linked half double crochet in that same stitch. So I'm going to insert my hook in this vertical bar. This is the last loop of my half double crochet that I just worked. I'm going to be inserting my hook behind that bar, yarning over and pulling up a loop, and in the same stitch inserting my hook, yarning over, pulling up a loop, 3 loops on my hook, yarning over, pulling through all 3. So I have 2 stitches for that row because those skipped stitches are not going to count as my first stitch, and I'm going to turn my work for row 2 and chain 2. The chain 2 at the beginning of every row will not count as a stitch. I'm going to work 2 linked half double crochets in the first stitch at the base of that chain 2. So I'm going to begin again that first linked half double crochet by inserting my hook into the second chain from the hook, that chain that I just made. So that front loop of that chain, I'm going to insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then to finish that stitch, I'm going to insert my hook into the base of that chain 2, that stitch right there, that same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through all 3 loops. I'm going to work another linked half double crochet in that same stitch, but now I'm going to be inserting my hook into that vertical bar, yarning over, pulling up a loop, insert my hook into the same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through all 3. And then I'm going to be working a linked half double crochet in that final stitch, working it the same way, inserting my hook into the vertical bar, yarning over, pulling up a loop, inserting my hook into the next stitch, yarning over, pulling up a loop, and yarning over, pulling through all 3. So now I have 3 stitches for row 2. Turn my work, and row 3, chain 2. I'm going to work a linked half double crochet in each of these first stitches. So working it the same way, picking up that front loop of that second chain and then finishing it at the base of that chain 2, linked half double crochet in the next, and then 2 linked half double crochets in the last stitch. I'm going to turn my work. I have 4 stitches for row 3, turn for row 4 and chain 2, 2 linked half double crochets in that first stitch, and then 1 linked half double crochet in the remaining stitches. So now I have 5 stitches. So that is my repeat. I'm going to be repeating rows 3 and 4 to my desired size. My cowl, I made 80 rows to finish, and I had enough yarn in the one skein to finish my whole cowl and got me to the size in my pattern. A couple of notes. Each row will increase by 1 stitch count, and you're going to be keeping all of your increases on the same side. So you'll be working 2 linked half double crochets in the first stitch and then the last stitch of each row. So when you work in the first stitch, you'll do 1 the remainder, turn, do 1 until you get to your final, and then work 2 in your last stitch. So you're keeping all of those increases on the same side, and so it's increasing on just one side of your cowl. The approximate finished size of your cowl will be approximately 34 inches wide by 21 inches to the point before you sew it together. So it basically looks like a triangle. And I will show you here that finished cowl in a minute when we go to sew on the button. If you'd like to make the cowl larger, just go ahead and add rows at the end. I've completed my 80 rows of my cowl, and I'm getting ready to sew it together, sew my button on. And you're looking at the long end. Here is the point where we started at, and I'm going to be folding that around and attaching that at the top of my cowl with the button here on the edge. I have a ruler that I'm going to be measuring, and I'm going to sew this approximately 4.5 inches down from the top end of my cowl. So 4.5 inches would be here, and then about 3 inches from the side. So 3 inches, well, I'm in a pretty good place. So right here is where I want to sew that all together. And I'm going to place a stitch marker there so I don't lose that place. Now I'm going to bring the end where we started around and on top of that stitch marker. And I'm going to have that come, the button is going to be sitting where the stitch marker is at, and so I want a little bit of a tab coming down, and you can see my stitch marker is underneath there. So I'm going to remove my stitch marker now, fold that down, and now I'll place the stitch marker in that same place but through both thicknesses of my cowl. So that is where I will be sewing on my button, right there. I'm going to get my needle. I'm using a coordinated embroidery thread to sew on my button. I have that thread on my needle here. I'm going to go ahead and just remove that stitch marker, place my button, working through both thicknesses, coming from underneath, sewing that button onto my cowl and sewing the two ends together. And you'll just continue sewing that button on until it's secure. And then tie off your thread. But that is all there is to it. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial today. Thanks so much for being with me. As always, remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you never miss a new video. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and Twitter. Remember to also subscribe to my newsletter so that you never miss a new pattern. And you can also send me an email at nanascraftyhome@gmail.com if you have any questions about my patterns or just want to reach out. Thanks so much, everyone. Take care. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.